Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing something pretty ambitious. We are going to completely shift the paradigm around weight loss. We're going to look really closely at why traditional dietary advice, the endless calorie counting, the strict regimens, the constant guilt, so often fails us. If you've ever felt like your body is just playing by a set of rules you don't understand, well, you are in the exact right place.
It's literally one of the most common, frustrating questions out there, right? Why do some people seem to just glance at a piece of cake and instantly gain 3 pounds, while others can eat massive portions of whatever they want and stay perfectly thin? Okay, let's dive into this, because I promise you the answer is a whole lot deeper than just a fast metabolism.
To figure out what is actually going on, we're pulling from a fascinating set of translated international expert psychological and coaching transcripts. These original source documents dig way down into the clinical and subconscious realities of body weight. And by examining these expert findings objectively, we can really start to peel back the layers of our own biology and psychology.
Let's start with a number that might actually shock you: 10%. According to the expert analysis in our sources, only about 10% of weight issues across the population are purely physiological. We're talking objective physical causes here, most commonly hormonal imbalances. In these specific cases, a person really needs to go visit an endocrinologist first to balance their system before ever worrying about a diet.
But, that leaves us with a massive 90%. So the crucial point is, for the vast majority of people, weight fluctuates based on a deeply individualized psychological set of rules operating right inside their head, not just the food on their plate. For 90% of us, weight is an internal blueprint, a highly specific program that dictates how our body holds onto or releases mass.
The sources call this blueprint our subconscious coordinate system. These are deeply ingrained psychological setups and behavioral patterns that operate completely under the radar of our conscious awareness. And here is the really wild part. These programs are established incredibly early. Sometimes it's early childhood programming, like a grandmother constantly rewarding a kid with sweet treats for good behavior. But science now shows it can go back even further, right into the womb. Generational stress or a grandmother surviving a famine can literally program a developing cell to hold on to weight for survival.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer scale of the evolutionary mismatch we are dealing with. Think about it. Our conscious mind represents about 500 years of profound scientific and technological progress. We set modern, conscious goals. We want to be thin, we want to look great on social media, we want to wear modern fashions, but our subconscious mind, that thing is running on a 100,000-year-old survival operating system. Because of this clash between modern aspirations and ancient evolutionary programming, we have to realize our subconscious is absolutely not our enemy. In fact, it's our greatest ally. It's our protector, our biggest fan. It's the literal reason we've survived this long. But its primary job is preservation. So, if your family history required immense physical resilience to survive hard labor, and you suddenly decide you want to be a delicate, thin influencer traveling the world, your 100,000-year-old subconscious looks at that and says, absolutely not. We need mass to survive. When the subconscious steps in to use weight for a specific purpose, it generally falls into one of 3 distinct mechanisms: compensatory, physiological protective, and traumatic. Let's break these down, because honestly, identifying your specific mechanism changes everything.
First up is the compensatory mechanism. This happens when we lack a certain resource or feeling in our lives, and our body literally uses weight to compensate for it. Our sources share this fantastic anecdote about a young, petite woman who started working as a teacher for a class of rowdy teenagers. Because she was small, the teens just didn't respect her. So what did her subconscious do? It helped her gain weight. The extra mass physically deepened her voice, giving her a more authoritative tone, and made her physically larger, commanding the respect she was missing.
And this brilliantly illustrates a core truth from the transcripts. Weight steps in to substitute for something missing. Consider retired heroic athletes or emergency responders. In their prime, their physical feats gave them immense societal significance and status. When they retire, that activity completely disappears. But the human need for significance? That remains. So their bodies literally expand, gaining mass, so they remain big, solid, and impossible to ignore in a room. They are literally eating to sustain their significance.
The second mechanism goes beyond just significance and taps right into the most primal human need of all: safety. This is the physiological protective mechanism. In this scenario, the subconscious uses weight to construct a literal, physical barrier between the vulnerable individual and the outside world. It is quite literally an armor made of adipose tissue.
The heart-wrenching but incredibly common example from the sources involves young girls maturing into women. If a young woman begins receiving unwanted, inappropriate attention and she lacks a strong support system to help her process it, her subconscious might make a drastic calculation. It thinks, if my attractiveness is causing me danger, I must become unattractive to be safe. The body then puts on weight, sometimes jumping several sizes, successfully shielding her from that invasive attention. The weight is literally her protective armor.
Let's move to the third category and see how this builds into the heaviest mechanism of all, the traumatic mechanism. This occurs when a deeply painful event completely overloads the nervous system. The mind essentially locks the weight in place as an extreme, last resort defense to prevent that past trauma from ever repeating. When a person is operating under this mechanism, standard diets, intense workouts, and lifestyle changes are going to face an incredibly high, almost impossible level of subconscious resistance.
The sources provide this amazingly powerful, striking analogy for why traditional diets fail so spectacularly here. Imagine a person who has just been run over by a truck. They're lying in a hospital bed completely covered in casts. A radical diet is like walking into that hospital room and yelling at the patient to get up and go for a jog. It's absurd, right? And cruel. The gentle approach, however, is recognizing the trauma. It's providing vitamins to support their healing and giving them crossword puzzles to keep their mind sharp while they safely recover in bed.
This uncovers a massive danger in the modern diet industry. Radical restrictive diets often break open a traumatized system without offering any psychological support whatsoever. If you forcefully strip away someone's protective armor of weight without giving them alternative coping tools, their subconscious is going to panic. The individual might just swap their weight issue for severe anxiety, a shopping addiction, or even substance abuse. The underlying need for protection hasn't been solved at all, it just relocated.
Now, to truly understand your own body, you really have to distinguish between deep psychological weight and simple situational stress weight. The transcript shared this great story of an expert who spent 3 months traveling in the US at age 19. She was sleeping terribly and surviving entirely on cheap fast food and pizza. She gained 7 kilograms, so about 15 pounds, rapidly. But because it was purely situational, the moment she returned home to her normal routine and regular food, the weight just melted off effortlessly. Deep psychological weight, however, doesn't budge even when the food is absolutely perfect.
This is exactly why the methodology matters so much. When you look at the data derived from these experts' coaching groups, the contrast is staggering. Highly individualized, gentle approaches, the ones that avoid radical deprivation and focus on small, safe psychological shifts, they yield an 80% completion and success rate. Traditional, radical, one-size-fits-all diet plans, they see about a 20% success rate, with the vast majority of people dropping out, burning out, or just regaining the weight. Ultimately, true, lasting weight management isn't about punishing your body into submission. It is about deep communication. It's about mapping your unique subconscious blueprint and rebuilding internal safety. If your weight is compensating for a lack of significance, you have to build significance elsewhere in your life. You have to add resources, not take them away through starvation.
We've covered a ton of ground today, shifting our focus from the plate to the mind. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder. If you've been fighting a lifelong, frustrating battle with the scale, stop asking what diet you should be on. Instead, look inward and ask your subconscious this fundamental question: what is your weight trying to protect you from?